Hey guys, Jobin here. A lot of you folks may recognize this knife on the table. This is a Ganzo 704, based off a, I believe now discontinued Benchmade design, whose name I forget. Very similar. And it's a great knife. A lot of times people will write to me and ask me questions. The typical question goes something along the lines of this. I've heard that some of these Chinese-made knives are a great value for the money. I want to get one or two to check out and see what I think of them. What should I buy? And these people, for the last 2-3 years, have generally gotten the same answer. And that answer is, well, buy an Enlon EL01. Here's a heavily modified one. Wait, hold on. It's not a good example if I'm going to show you the basic knife. Here's some stock bits. One of these guys, because it's a great knife. And the second sentence is, or buy a Ganzo 704. And despite various knives coming and going through my hands over the years, having those knives in somewhere in the top 5 of my recommendations has not changed in the last few years, because it's great. And kind of sadly, in my opinion, the Ganzo 704 has never been that popular, despite my glowing recommendations for it. Guess it turns out I'm not spectacularly influential. Who knew? Which is really a shame, because far from getting worse over the years or becoming irrelevant, it's actually only gotten better. One thing I'd like to mention, in my initial review of this knife, quite a while ago, I pointed out that the model was prone to a little bit of vertical blade play. And this one, being several years old, does have it. I don't even know if that'll be noticeable on the camera, if you'll be able to hear the click. I'd call that cosmetic blade play, because it's going to annoy knife nuts, but it doesn't affect its ability to lock up or any comfort. It's not noticeable when you're using the knife, and it stays open when it's supposed to. And truth be told, a lot of Benchmade knives have exactly that kind of play. I got a Benchmade Adamas, a fantastic knife. Also has a little bit of vertical play. I think that's the only one around here right now. But most of my Benchmade Axis locks have a little bit of wiggle if you look for it. But here's the thing. I'm actually going somewhere with this. Back in the day, a few years ago, probably about half of the Ganzo 704s had that. They've gotten better. The new ones, it's maybe 1 in 10. The manufacturing tolerances have really tightened up. For that, and another reason, if I recommended this knife before, that goes at least double now, because beyond the basic black, there's now green and tan versions. So you get your choice of colors too. Here's the tan one. Still the same black hardware and pocket clip on it. Makes sort of an interesting contrast there. Here's the green one. One of the reasons I like this knife is because it has a very comfortable and very secure handle, which is worth mentioning because it doesn't necessarily look like it would have an extremely secure handle. Somehow, the way that the geometry works on this, your grip on the thing is fantastic. You can poke and jab with it and so forth, even with wet hands. I've never felt like my hand was going to slide forward onto the blade, despite the lack of a really pronounced guard or choil or anything like that. It's kind of funny because I've handled knives that have a lot deeper indent for the finger, for example, maybe even more rise up here to put your thumb on, that handling them with wet hands, if you try to push into something like that, your hand slides forward a little bit. And I'm not entirely sure why that is, but I have a theory. And that's that if you want to make a secure handle, you need a lot of surface area. And this is just sort of a basic, more or less slab-shaped handle that fills your hand. You know, it's rounded in the right places so it doesn't stick into your palm or anything. But it's pretty straightforward, so there's a lot of surface area on your hand. So in terms of security, it works better than like a smaller handle that's all knobbly and has sticky out bits all over it. But actually, it has less purchase for friction and general grip intensity. So overall, like I said, this is one of my favorite knives. I've carried one of these a lot. It's been very reliable. I think it's a reasonable size. The blade is a bit over 3 inches of cutting edge, which I find to be a very good compromise. Smaller knives are sometimes too small for some stuff. Bigger knives might lose a bit of agility for detailed everyday tasks, or just end up taking up more room and being heavier in your pocket without doing a lot more. Overall, I think this is, in many ways, basically what I view a pocket knife, a good pocket knife size and shape and performance as being. It cuts nicely, it opens and closes easily, it doesn't weigh a ton, but it's big enough to get pretty much all the jobs I've ever asked of it done. And like I said, the recent production quality on these is really good. I've inspected a bunch of them, and I'll tell you the only flaw I've noticed, pretty much the only one I've noticed. It's a minor finish issue. Most of it's great, but sometimes, particularly on the underside here, it's like they didn't quite sand the liner perfectly, and if you run your hand along it, sort of along the inside edge, you'll feel a little bit of roughness. Sometimes, not always. But that's the kind of thing you will either never notice or you can fix with an emery board. Not really a big deal in my opinion. Most of the fit and finish is great. You know, liners matching up with the G10 handle. It's all good. Another thing they've improved on since the early days, actually, is this guy here, my old one. It's drilled and tapped for a pocket clip on both sides, so it's reversible. But the screw holes are blind. They're drilled and tapped through the G10, but they used to stop at the liner. These guys here, the newer ones, and they've been like this for a little while, but I don't think I've mentioned it in a video. The newer ones are drilled and tapped all the way through. Let me see if I can show that to you. There, see that? So that's just another little improvement. Like I said, the knife's been basically getting slightly better each production run for several years now, which is one of the reasons it still tops my recommendations list as just a really great knife. So that's it. I think I've said about all I can think of to say about this guy. Ganzo 704, great budget knife. This is Jobin signing off, saying, remember where your knife is. Now that I'm done shooting the video, these two are going back in their boxes, but I'm not parting with this one. It's mine now.